Now, going back to the promise of what Jim mentioned earlier on, to help me dive into the digital transformation topic, we have a distinguished set of experts here, right? That's going to help me really talk about the business value of all of these types of capabilities here. So first of all, let me introduce Alan Forbes. Alan is an author, a champion, an adventurist, and a father of vital signs. And Alan has spent 20 years developing solutions for organizations using Domino and Microsoft. Alan.
Awesome. Thank you for that introduction, Andrew. I haven't been called distinguished in a while. I kind of like how that feels. We see this massive shift in the workplace from, working in the cubicle to working in these kind of new environments that we all have behind us, whether that's the kitchen table or the home office or the couch or whatever. And I think that's really driven a whole new demand for these digital solutions. Is really a universal need for our new distributed workforce to be, connected and productive and accountable, which ironically is what Notes has been all about since the very beginning. So it's really awesome how it's all sort of coming together in a cool way. And the features that the roadmap that you just put out for us is really awesome and well needed. And I think what I want to try to do is just tell a little story that ties some of this cool technology stuff back to business value. So we have this graphic on the screen here that represents the way that we think about business value. And it's focused around people. My focus is on the right side, and that is specifically the areas of technology, culture, and leadership. And by technology, what I mean is, the things like HCL Connections and Domino at the same time, and solutions that people actually interact with. And the culture, what I mean is the way that the people interact with this technology. So in some companies, you find there's more of a hoarding mentality where people don't really want to share, and you have to do a lot of work with them to shift the culture over to one of a more sharing culture. You also sometimes find top-down hierarchical cultures. Sometimes you find flatter cultures. All of those things influence the way that people use technology. And sometimes that's as important as the technology itself. And the last box is around leadership. And leadership is really just kind of a style thing. Again, you find sometimes very hierarchical companies where there's a specific chain of command, and it's very difficult for anybody to make a decision or to take ownership around something. And then other times you find companies where the leadership style is more loose and flat, and people do have ownership around things, and their boss is not really someone they go for permission to, but more someone they go to get advice when they're trying to solve a problem together. And it's more of a joint kind of thing. So these three boxes all work together. And I have a story that I like to share about these three boxes, how we combined them at a customer that we work with called Sherwin. You might have heard of them. They're a pretty big paint company. And they used our product called Vital Signs to identify their internal champions. And internal champions is a term that we made up, basically. It's a report inside of Vital Signs that helps them identify who are the people who are using connections in the best possible way. So on the technology box, Vital Signs is a monitoring and administration tool. So it monitors the underlying technology, making sure that the web sphere and all the pieces that go on, under the hood are working, that the response time is good, that it's not running out of disk space, that when the users actually log onto it, it's going to respond. And then on the culture side is really what we did that I thought was kind of interesting with this notion of the internal champions. And interestingly, as the shift went from working primarily in the office to working primarily at home, there was a shift in who those internal champions were, because everybody had to adopt a new way of working. And suddenly people who maybe didn't use connections at all suddenly found that they had to use it as the primary way to collaborate with their peers. So we were able to identify a new class of internal champions. And as you started to see people who in the past had not really contributed very much suddenly posting in a lot of different communities and asking questions and being interactive. Those are the people you want to foster. And you want to encourage that because you want to get the most of your investment out of this technology. And then finally, the leadership box is that you really want to show some leadership around online collaboration and how people really should be using this tool. So the Internal Champions report identifies two categories of people. They're the risers and the fallers. So, and they're both important because obviously you want to encourage the risers, but when people start to fall, you also want to catch them and offer them training and empowerment to find out what's going on. Maybe there's some other cultural thing going on. It's like, well, gee, every time I post something, Susie over in billing makes some negative comment about it, or there's something going on. And as a leader, you want to catch that, and you want to find out what the cultural barriers are to adopting the technologies. So we're actually quite proud of this Internal Champions report. And as part of a special offer around this webinar, we're offering it free for 6 months to anybody who's attending this that's wants to take a look at both their technology infrastructure, but also the cultural part of their internal champions and how that works. So that's a pretty cool offer, I think, one we have not made before.